surgical precision, not warriors, not armies, executioners. Kaltoro's prime burned, and as it did, the Dravari high clans realized the truth. This was not war. This was judgment. The collapse of pride. System by system, the Dravari crumbled. Their fleets, once symbols of fear, shattered against human battle lines. The Dravari ships, decorated with spines and banners, looked like beasts roaring in vain as human formations cut through them with mathematical precision. Every Dravari ambush was anticipated. Every retreat was intercepted. Every plea for alliance was ignored. The galaxy's neutral powers watched in awe and terror. No speeches came from Earth. No justification. Only action. Humanity's fleets did not pause to claim territory. They did not raise flags over conquered planets. They burned, they destroyed, and they moved on. Dravari commanders begged their leaders for reinforcements, but reinforcements never arrived. Because every stronghold, every reserve fleet, every hidden dockyard had already been silenced. In the span of months, the Dravari clans went from laughter to panic. Their markets collapsed. Their supply lines vanished. Their throne world stood naked under the shadow of human dreadnoughts. The patience they mocked had transformed into an unstoppable tide of vengeance. The final silence. The end came at Torashke, the Dravari throne world, seat of their high clans. Hundreds of human warships arrived in perfect formation, their black hulls blotting out the sun. The Dravari lords, in desperation, broadcast pleas for mercy across every channel. But Earth did not answer. The bombardment began with surgical precision. Orbital platforms vaporized in seconds. Palace spires toppled under relentless kinetic fire. The oceans turned red with the ash of burning cities. When the human ground forces landed, they marched not as soldiers, but as executioners of a sentence long delayed. The Dravari lords were dragged from their fortresses. Some screamed, some begged, some offered treasures and slaves. Humanity answered them with silence. The executions were broadcast, one by one, until the last Dravari clanlord fell, his words drowned under the cold hum of human weapons. And then it ended. The fleets departed, the soldiers vanished, the skis cleared. But Torashke was nothing but ruins, its silence echoing across the galaxy. The whispered lesson. In the aftermath, the galaxy did not celebrate. There were no feasts, no trophies, only silence. Merchants spoke in hushed tones about the colonies humanity had lost. Refugees whispered of Earth's patience, how it had endured insult after insult, never striking, always restraining, until one day it didn't. The lesson spread from star to star, passed in whispers no one dared to raise in public. Never provoke Earth, never mock their patience, for when it ends, so will you. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not their fleets, not their soldiers, not their weapons. It was their patience. Because patience, when finally broken, becomes wrath unmeasured. And that wrath does not end until silence reigns. The skis above Athelion burned red as the Zurath horde descended. The colony had been built with patience. Humans had spent generations terraforming the once-dead world into a thriving cradle of life. Lush forests stretched across its surface, rivers carved new veins across its soil, and a city of glass and steel rose from the plains. The Zurath did not care. They came with fire and laughter. Their warships tore open the colony's orbital defenses like a butcher stripping meat from bone. Civilian ships, slow, unarmed, desperate, were swatted down with casual cruelty. On the surface, Zurath soldiers prowled the ruins. They did not simply kill, they mocked. Broadcasts filled the colony's emergency channels, Zurath commanders speaking in guttural tones, laughing as they executed survivors live on camera. One transmission showed the colonial governor dragged through the streets by a chain around his neck. Another showed children forced to kneel in the mud as Zurath warriors trampled human flags beneath their clawed feet. The Zurath were not content with victory. They wanted humiliation. Their high warlord, Zurkal, declared in a broadcast to the wider galaxy, "The humans preach patience, restraint, civility. They do not understand the language of war. We will teach them. Their colonies are kindling. Their fleets are brittle shells. Their patience is weakness, and weakness deserves the blade." On Athelion, the forest smoldered. Millions were dead, and the Zurath laughed, believing they had broken the spine of humanity. They were wrong. The Feast of Mockery. For weeks after the massacre, Zurath celebrations echoed across the stars. Their fleets drifted arrogantly through trade routes, unchallenged, intercepting civilian transports and forcing survivors to spread their message of dominance. In the galactic forums, Zurath ambassadors boasted openly. "Earth is silent," they sneered. They barked about honor and law, but when struck they cower. They bow their heads. They beg their allies for scraps of protection. They are sheep pretending to be wolves. Other species whispered uneasily. The Zurath were cruel but efficient, and humanity, curious, patient, slow to act, remained silent. No retaliation, no fleets, no condemnation. The Zurath mistook silence for fear. At their great feast world, Traskun, the Zurath held a victory carnival. They filled the sky with fireworks, reenactments of the Athelian slaughter playing on enormous hollow screens for sport. They roasted cattle stolen from human colonies, raising cups of fermented blood wine as they cheered. The Zurath believed humanity broken. They believed patience meant weakness. And in their arrogance, they did not hear the silence shift. The breaking of silence. The galaxy's comms networks trembled on the night the first human message arrived. It was not a plea. It was not a warning. It was a statement. "This transmission is directed to the Zurath Dominion. Humanity grieves, humanity remembers, and humanity is coming." The voice was calm, too calm. The Zurath laughed when they first heard it, dismissing it as empty bravado. But then the sightings began. An abandoned mining station on the edge of Zurath space, reduced to atoms overnight, the void still boiling from a kinetic strike. A fleet of Zurath raiders, 30 ships strong, vanished. Only blackened husks drifted where they once prowled. Entire patrol routes went dark. Scouts failed to return. Outposts fell silent. The Zurath mocked no longer. They demanded answers. Who was striking them? Where were their enemies hiding? Then came the second human transmission, broadcast across every Zurath channel. "You mocked patience. Now you will learn wrath." And with those words, humanity revealed its hand. The black horizon. It began as a shadow. Stars vanished from Zurath skies, blotted out by a fleet so vast it defied calculation. Dreadnoughts, the kind humanity had sworn never to deploy again, emerged from the void in grim silence. Their hulls bore no insignia, only scars of ancient wars. Carrier groups unfolded behind them, launching wings of fighters in perfect silence. Orbital bombardment platforms drifted like steel monoliths, their barrels glowing with restrained fury. The Zurath gathered their fleets in panic, rallying thousands of ships at Traskun. They expected a battle. What came was not battle, it was execution. Human ships did not open hails. They did not posture. They advanced with the cold inevitability of a storm. Kinetic rods rained from orbit, striking with the force of extinction. Traskun seas boiled. Its continents split apart. Zurath defenses, proud and vast, crumbled in minutes. The Zurath screamed orders, but their comms were drowned in human signals repeating one phrase. Athelion remembered. The Zurath had mocked. Humanity answered. Fire across the stars. Retribution spread like wildfire. Every Zurath world burned. Human fleets moved with surgical precision. No colony spared. No fortress ignored. The Zurath, once predators, now became prey. On the war moon Cartel, Zurath generals boasted of their impenetrable shield arrays. Humanity answered by dropping tungsten rods at relativistic speeds, tearing the moon apart in a single blinding flash. On the factory world of Braskun, Zurath war engineers fought tooth and claw to protect their shipyards. Humanity's dreadnoughts silenced them with railguns the size of mountains. Braskun's atmosphere burned for weeks. Zurath warriors, once feared for their brutality, were dragged screaming from the ruins. They begged for mercy. Humanity gave none. For every child executed on Athelion, 1,000 Zurath soldiers fell. For every human family mocked and broken, a city of Zurath was reduced to ash. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the Zurath Dominion, once an empire spanning hundreds of systems, was erased in less than a year. The humans had been patient, too patient, but once patience ended, wrath became infinite. The silence after. When the fires dimmed, when the skis stopped boiling, when the last Zurath stronghold fell into ruin, a silence unlike any other settled across the galaxy. The Zurath were no more. Their fleets were scrap. Their worlds were tombs. Their name, once shouted with arrogance, became a curse whispered in fear. Survivors from other species, neutral traders and spies from rival empires, all carried the same story back to their people. Do not provoke Earth. They wait. They endure. They forgive longer than any. But when patience ends, there is no force in the galaxy that can withstand what follows. The galaxy's rulers began to rewrite their treaties. Their soldiers trembled at the thought of facing what the Zurath had awakened. On Earth there was no celebration, no parades, no joy, only silence. Humanity had avenged its dead, but vengeance had left a scar across the stars. The lesson was eternal. Patience is not weakness. Silence is not fear. And when humanity's wrath is triggered, it does not simply answer, it annihilates. The Zurath had mocked. The Zurath had laughed. And in the end, the Zurath were no more.